Hi, good day to you, and welcome to my channel where I tutor you in science for free. The topic in this video will be infectious diseases. And this topic is actually a new topic of 2024, and I was teaching this actually in a center. The challenges was that there's probably no good way or no known way to probably test the student or yourself. So I was thinking perhaps maybe I can wait 1 year and see what the sample questions are when I buy the 10-year series. However, the publishers also did not include the questions inside. So instead of waiting another year, I think it's a better idea to just do this one now so that viewers can benefit from it. And also because we live in a post-COVID world, we probably also need to understand what is the difference between bacteria and viruses. If you can remember, all those years back in 2020, 2021, a lot of funny opinions, odd solutions suggested by a lot of people that does not even help to deal with virus. Because COVID is a virus, we need to understand what virus are and also appreciate that it's not a bacteria. So we cannot use bacterial solutions on viruses. And that's why I believe the government or the authorities believe that it is important to educate the public, the youths of today, about this concept moving forward. Talking about bacteria and viruses, it's initially a JC topic. However, it's heavily diluted and brought into the secondary school syllabus. Okay, so let's talk about infectious diseases versus non-infectious diseases. So infectious diseases, based on the name itself, definitely you can pass from one person to another. And it's through pathogens. It's formed by two words, patho, that cause pain, and gen, it's like the agent. So it's a pain-causing agent or something that causes sicknesses. More often than not, they are from bacteria and viruses. And examples include these. And for non-infectious diseases, they are not caused by pathogen. They are either inherited by environment or by lifestyle choices. And things include these, like liver cirrhosis from alcohol abuse. Coronary heart disease is from poor dietary or smoking. Atherosclerosis, type 2 diabetes, a lot from lifestyle choices. Sickle cell anemia is by genetics, is an inherited trait. Okay, let's talk about how diseases are spread. Mainly, it's through air droplets. We are more familiar with examples like the influenza or COVID-19. And direct contact is more from like bodily fluids. So STI, we have covered that before in the earlier videos. Do check it out in the top right corner. Breastfeeding as well, diseases can be passed. So these are the examples: hepatitis B, syphilis, or contact with mucous membranes. If let's say the infected blood touches your eyes, nose, mouth, blood open, actually all of this is just the same concept. It's just being in contact with mucous membranes. Therefore, the fine capillaries are exposed to these pathogens and they can absorb and it's into your body already. And that's where the infection starts. Or you can also have consumed contaminated food and water, and cholera being one of them. So do ensure good personal and food hygiene, as well as to use clean water supply and also proper sewage system. As long as you are in a developed country, I think these shouldn't be a problem. So let's look at what the big deal about bacteria and viruses are. We need to also understand how they are built in order to tackle them. So a typical bacterial cell has, cell wall and DNA, and it's a prokaryote, so it's a type of cell that does not have a nucleus, which means to say that the main DNA is a big rubber band. It's circular in shape. It's freely floating in the cytoplasm. Yeah, some are pathogenic, some cause diseases, and some do not. In fact, a lot of them, they are actually beneficial, especially those that are in your alimentary canal, your digestive system. That's why there are things called the probiotics, even prebiotics, to help them do well. If they are performing well, you perform well too. All these organelles are very familiar to you already, and this is a new vocabulary called the plasmid. A plasmid is a little DNA circles. If DNA is the big rubber band, they have circular DNA, okay, so big rubber band, and these are just a small rubber band. Plasmids do give the bacterial cell extra capabilities. So it's like a game, you have extra attributes. But we don't have to dive too deep into that, just have to know that what this thing is. So I'm just giving a little bit of a background. And let's look at virus. So virus comes in not just this circular shape, there's a lot of different kinds of shapes. There are bacteriophages that looks pretty much like a little spaceship. But generally those viruses that attack humans, that cause problems to us, that are of concern, will be this kind of shape. They are enveloped. So a typical virus has a protein code, enclosing its genetic material, and only reproduce in living host cells. So this is a very simplified schematic. So hooray, we don't have to work too hard to remember what's going on in a virus. So there's a genetic material inside here and the protein code. And a little bit of comparison. So viruses have living and non-living characteristics. They do not have a lot of organelles. They don't do all these things. So that's why we call them virus particles. They are just a little particle, okay, that once it infects a cell, sometimes a human cell or an animal cell or even bacterial cell, then they will start to inject its genetic material inside and use the whole cell mechanism to reproduce. General comparisons is like that. So outer covering, protein code, and cell wall for bacteria, DNA for bacteria only, and virus can have DNA or RNA. So they're really complicated. Can even be single strand or double strand, but yeah, that's out of the syllabus. So just to remember, they look like that and have a large variety of different kinds of variation. And lastly, these three attributes are things that viruses do not have. And a good rule of thumb for comparing the sizes is, for let's say a human cell is like an apartment building, then a bacterial cell is like a car, and a virus is like a football or a tennis ball, So the size difference is generally like that, to put some image into your mind. A bacterial cell is a lot smaller because they are less complicated living beings, and viruses are even smaller because they are even less complicated. They are not even considered full living beings, so they are just a particle. That's why they are so small. Okay, next, a very common disease caused by viruses would be the influenza. I'm sure you have caught influenza somewhere before in your life and you have experienced what it feels like. Okay, so they are caused by influenza virus. Okay, it's transmitted by droplets, so do stay away if you have or you know someone that has it. Okay, signs and symptoms are all of this. I'm sure they look and sound very familiar to you. And over here, you can see that this is the structure of the influenza virus particle. There's a membrane envelope, there's a protein coat, and spike protein on the outside. So it forms a little landing gear onto the host cell, and they have a lot of little broken up genetic materials inside, a total of 8 of them. Therefore, influenza virus can mutate very quickly and build different kinds of spike proteins. They are different landing gear, so it makes them difficult to recognize once they have changed their attributes. Therefore, a lot of new influenza vaccines have to be created to deal with the influenza of the season. Yeah, so to reduce transmission, yes, regular vaccination, and it has to be regular because of this. There are 8 of them. 8 DNA, they switch their code around really conveniently and quickly. So if there are new vaccines, influenza vaccines in the market, it's a pretty good idea to go and take it. Social distancing is pretty straightforward. Living in a post-COVID world, we understand what this is all about already. And some commonsensical things like this: wear masks, personal hygiene, avoid touching your eyes, nose, mouth, your mucosal membranes, and take antiviral medication, prescribed ones. Yeah, because influenza is caused by viruses. So next one will be pneumococcal disease caused by a bacteria called Streptococcus pneumoniae, and same, transmissions by droplets. Signs and symptoms will be these, and the more severe ones will be, severe signs and symptoms will be the vomiting, chest pain, rapid breathing, because it does infection through this. Middle ear infection causes a lot of balance problems. Therefore, the vomiting happens. So a lot of lung infection. Therefore, it got its name as pneumonia bacteria. Meningitis, causing the infection of brain and spinal cord, and also of the blood. So reducing transmission, of course, same. Vaccination, social distancing, because they pass by droplets, so it's the same as in the influenza one. And all of this is pretty straightforward. It's the same as the influenza one. So thankfully in the syllabus writer is really smart to have chosen an example of a disease for the virus and the bacteria to have very similar symptoms, so you don't have to study so hard. Okay, so take prescribed antibiotics medication because this is caused by bacteria. Okay, so a lot of talk about vaccine. So what is vaccine? How does it work? How is it created, right? So it contains an agent resembling pathogen, okay, stimulating white blood cells, the soldiers of your body, okay, to produce antibodies, okay, when a pathogen invades. So an antibody is a little protein that blocks the landing gear of the pathogen, therefore they cannot land and they are marked for destruction. So a normal virus like the influenza looks like this. It has its genetic material inside ready to cause all the damage into your body, and then the vaccine will look like that. It's just a empty shell. So it has the similar landing gear. Okay, once it goes into your body recognizes it and action starts. So let's take a look at how it works. So a vaccine is like that. It resembles the agent, the pathogen, the white blood cell binds. Then after, you can see that the landing gear are touching each other. They have successfully binded. Then they are stimulated to divide. Enemy is here. We need more soldiers to fight. So they divide. You have a lot of soldiers here. Then they produce antibodies. So these are all the little proteins that go and bind with they are able to bind with the pathogen and be marked for destruction. And these soldiers remember the shape and the look of the pathogen, and in the near future, if infection ever comes again, they will remember how to deal with it. This is a very simplified and watered down understanding of how battles are fought in the body. Okay, so this whole study of warfare in the body is called immunology. It's a very deep and broad topic that can be studied in the university as a module, and it can take on this topic all the way to PhD level. So it's really complicated. So let's stick to what we are given. So this is a really simplified concept and simplified idea. Okay, so let's look at antibiotics. Recall that they are used to only treat bacterial infections, and this is done by multiple ways. The general rule of thumb is also just to block the bacteria from having a life. That's all. So anything you can do to it, you go and do to make sure that they do not have a life. So firstly, inhibit the synthesis of bacterial cell wall. So once they do not have the cell wall, they most likely will die. Okay, a lot of water enters by osmosis, then they burst. They stop the membrane function, breaking up the membrane, then they will die. And also a lot of times, if you go to do vaccination or you do disinfection, use disinfecting spray on the table or on your hand, there's always this content of alcohol because they help to dissolve the cell membrane of bacteria, inhibits protein synthesis in ribosomes, so they can't produce any proteins, so they can't grow, they cannot do much things. A lot of equipment in the cell is all made from protein, and then inhibit enzyme action. So there's no enzyme action, there's no metabolism, there's no movement, there's no processing in the cell, and then they will die. So antibiotics, they are not used on viruses, so do bear that in mind. Viruses use antiviral drugs, bacteria use antibiotics. Viruses do not have cell walls, viruses do not have cell membranes, viruses do not have ribosomes, and they don't grow. Okay, so do also note that in antibiotics, if you misuse them or you overuse them, you also have certain problems because bacteria, they learn and they grow and they adapt very quickly if you do not destroy them. So let's say in a colony of bacteria, some of them are a little bit stronger than the others. Let's say the blue ones, they are a little bit stronger. They can handle antibiotic X. They can survive a bit better, a little bit longer, just a little bit. Okay, so you use antibiotic X on them, all the green one dies, leaving only the blue ones. And if you complete the course of antibiotics, all will die. Okay, if you stop down there just because you feel better and the blue ones, the stronger ones, do not die, okay, they will learn that, hey, antibiotic X works like that. We need to, grow and evolve to survive the next wave of exposure, if ever. So they will learn and grow and they will multiply. So the stronger ones multiply. So it makes your case even worse. Now, therefore, this colony is not very sensitive to antibiotic X now, and you need a stronger antibiotics to solve your problem. So in this case, don't misuse, don't overuse, and complete the full course. And only use when necessary, therefore, to kill off the whole colony, ensuring that they don't evolve. And like mentioned in the start of the video, there is no particular sample questions because there are no questions out there in the market that I want to use. I only use the very accurate ones that are tested in the main exam hall, and they are not being published. So unfortunately, there are no discussion of questions now. So how will I actually train students when there are these cases of new syllabus? It's the same. It's always going back to the learning outcomes. If you're able to answer them, all the learning outcomes, and you'll be fine. So if you are new to this channel, do like and subscribe. There are playlists of biology, physics, chemistry, all there done for you. And if you want very simplified, very straightforward study tips, just head on to this video over here.